What if the most dangerous threat to your dog isn't a sudden injury or, an obvious disease, but the absolute silence of a really subtle, unnoticed shift?
It's a pretty terrifying thought, honestly.
It really is. Today, we are taking a deep dive into the science of adult preventative care, and we're specifically looking at a really comprehensive framework developed by the German Shepherd Health Academy.
Right, and we are so glad you could join us for this one.
We really are. Our whole mission today is to extract the core principles of proactive pet health from this source material and basically show you how to transform from a reactive owner into an active, highly effective partner in your dog's lifelong wellness.
Because it's a crucial shift in mindset,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, the reality is the traditional approach we take to canine health, and honestly often to our own health too, is just entirely reactive.
Oh, absolutely.
We wait for a symptom, we look for a limp, or we wait for a loss of appetite, and only then do we actually seek a cure.
Exactly. And the material we're looking at today uses this brilliant, very grounded analogy right at the beginning to explain this.
I love this analogy.
It's so good. They point out that preventive care is essentially like regularly checking your car's oil rather than, waiting until the engine starts making a strange, terrifying clanking noise while you're driving down the highway.
It's the perfect visualization. Because, I mean, think about it. By the time you hear that metal on metal clanking in an engine, the catastrophic damage is already happening.
Yeah, you're already in trouble.
Exactly. The unseen friction has been grinding away for miles. And in biological terms, by the time your dog is visibly limping or showing severe lethargy, a massive amount of cellular degradation has already occurred, or, organ compensation.
Right, the body has been hiding it.
Yes. And at that point, the cost to fix it skyrockets, and the overall lifespan of the dog is compromised.
So what does this all mean? Like when we take this concept out of the garage and put it into the actual veterinary clinic, what does practical preventive care actually look like?
That's the big question.
Because I have to push back a little bit here just on behalf of anyone listening right now. When we talk about preventative care in this context, is it genuinely a distinct strategic medical approach? Or is it just kind of a fancy, heavily medicalized term for being a responsible pet owner, feeding them a good diet, walking them, loving them?
I'm so glad you brought that up because that is a very, very common skepticism.
I mean, it sounds like just basic care, right?
It does, but the answer is that it is absolutely a distinct clinical strategy. Yes, of course it encompasses being a responsible owner, but it elevates those daily acts of care into a rigorous data collection framework.
Okay, so it's more deliberate.
Much more deliberate. It's the difference between just hoping your dog is healthy because they, seem happy playing in the yard versus actively establishing measurable baselines to prove and protect that health at a cellular level over time.
Right. So to prevent that strange engine noise, we first need to define what a smoothly purring engine actually sounds like for that specific dog. We have to move from this vague idea of general responsibility to establishing hard clinical baseline.
And that brings us to the absolute backbone of preventive care, which is routine veterinary examinations.
Just the standard checkups.
Right. For a healthy adult German Shepherd, or honestly really any breed, these comprehensive exams are the foundation upon which everything else is built. I mean, you cannot detect a deviation if you don't know the starting point.
And what's really interesting in the source material is that during these exams, the vet isn't just looking for problems.
No, not at all.
They are actively evaluating body condition, joint mobility, coat and skin health, dental status, and even like the dog's general demeanor. They are mapping out the specific landscape of that individual dog.
What's fascinating here is how much more valuable a personalized health baseline is compared to a generic breed standard.
Oh, that's a great point.
Because we often think, well, German Shepherds generally weigh this much, or they generally have this specific kind of joint angulation. But your vet isn't treating the breed standard.
They're treating the dog in front of them.
Exactly. They are treating the unique physiological organism sitting on the exam table.
I like to think of establishing this clinical baseline like taking a before photo during a massive home renovation.
Oh, I like that.
Because if you don't thoroughly document where the load-bearing walls originally stood, you really can't accurately measure how much the foundation has shifted over the years. You need to know exactly where you started structurally to know if your house is like drifting off course.
But that structural analogy is spot on, because that shifting foundation in a dog's body can be incredibly subtle.
Yeah, they don't exactly complain about a sore back.
No, they don't. Dogs are evolutionarily hardwired to hide pain and weakness. Showing vulnerability in the wild is a death sentence.
Wow, right. Instincts.
So by the time they show you they are sick, they're usually very, very sick. And this is exactly why routine blood work and periodic wellness screenings throughout a dog's adult years are totally non-negotiable in this preventive framework.
Wait, I want to clarify something for our listeners here. If my dog is running around, eating well, and has a super shiny coat, why do we need to pull blood? I mean, the outside looks perfectly fine.
Because the outside is basically an illusion maintained by incredibly resilient internal organs.
An illusion.
Yeah, let's look at the liver, for instance.
Hmm.
A dog's liver has massive regenerative and compensatory capabilities. It can continue to function and filter toxins even when a significant portion of it is damaged or diseased.
Seriously. It just works around the damage.
It works right around it. So you won't see a dull coat or the yellowing of the eyes until the organ is essentially failing.
Oh, wow. So we need to see what's happening behind the drywall before the ceiling caves in.
Exactly. Blood screenings track internal health markers and organ function over time. So if a vet has 3 years of healthy blood work to look at, and suddenly one liver enzyme marker like, say, ALT shifts slightly in year 4, they can intervene immediately.
But if they don't have that history?
Right. If they only pull blood in year 4, because the dog is suddenly lethargic, they have absolutely no idea what that dog's normal ALT level was, that shift could be a minor elevation, or it could be a massive spike for that specific dog.
Oh, I see.
The historical baseline gives the vet the context that they need to make a fast, accurate medical decision.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So we've taken the before photos. We have established this rock-solid, individualized internal baseline.
Right.
But once that baseline is established, we can't just leave it exposed. We have to actively defend it against invisible, relentless external and internal threats that can slowly degrade a dog's health over time.
And this is where the strategy shifts from just observing the baseline to actively protecting it. And that means taking a rigorous approach to vaccinations, parasite prevention, and dental care.
Let's talk about the immunological side first. I think anyone listening to this deep dive knows they need to vaccinate their puppies and give them flea medication. Like, that's pet ownership 101.
Oh, for sure.
But the ongoing nature of it seems to be where people kind of drop the ball.
They absolutely do. The adult booster schedule is critical because immunological memory fades.
Meaning the immune system forgets.
Basically, yes. When you vaccinate a dog, you are introducing an antigen to stimulate the production of antibodies and memory B cells. But without periodic re-exposure to that antigen, which is the booster, those memory cells eventually die off or just become dormant.
So the immune system literally forgets what it's supposed to be fighting.
Precisely. So you're left with a dog that had, say, parvo shots at 8 weeks old. But by age 4, they might be walking around completely unprotected.
That is terrifying.
It is. And it's a very similar story with parasite prevention. It's not just about avoiding itchy fleas during a summer camping trip. We are talking about severe vector-borne diseases like Lyme, anaplasmosis, and heartworm.
Which are no joke.
No, they can be fatal. And what's critical to understand now is that historical seasonal timelines are completely out the window.
Oh, right, because of the weather changes.
Exactly. Due to shifting climate patterns, ticks are remaining active much longer, sometimes year-round in areas that used to have hard winter freezes.
So you really have to maintain that chemical shield continuously, which actually brings up another kind of shield, the dental aspect. The framework heavily emphasizes dental health, and honestly, this seems like one of the most underestimated areas of adult pet care.
It is chronically overlooked. Desensitizing a puppy's mouth pays off massively in adulthood because routine oral care and professional dental evaluations are absolutely critical to systemic health.
I need to stop you right there, though. Walk me through this. Are you really saying a bit of tartar on a canine tooth can actually cause systemic damage? Like, how does that leap happen?
This raises an important question. Why do we constantly separate the health of a dog's mouth from the health of their entire body?
Because it just seems like a cosmetic thing, you know?
Exactly. We treat bad breath and yellow teeth as purely cosmetic issues. But the mechanism of periodontal disease is vicious. A dog's mouth, particularly the gum line, is highly vascularized.
Meaning lots of blood vessels.
Tons of them. It's packed with blood vessels. So when calculus builds up on the tooth, it pushes the gum away, creating these microscopic pockets.
Oh, gross. And those pockets become breeding grounds for bacteria.
Millions of them. Streptococcus and other really aggressive bacteria thrive in there. And because the gums are so vascular, Every single time the dog chews a piece of kibble or gnaws on a toy, they are actively forcing that bacteria directly into their bloodstream
Wow. So they are essentially giving themselves micro-injections of bacteria every single day.
every day. It's called bacteremia. And once that bacteria is in the bloodstream, it circulates everywhere. It lands on the mitral valve of the heart, causing endocarditis.
Heart disease from a dirty tooth.
Yes. And it filters through the kidneys, causing microscarring that eventually leads to renal failure. So when we talk about defending the mouth, we really aren't talking about a pretty smile. Defending the mouth is quite literally defending the heart and the kidneys.
Okay, my mind is a little blown right now. But as you're laying out the mechanics of all this, the fading memory B cells, the shifting tick migration patterns, the bacteremia, I'm putting myself in the shoes of the listener.
Okay.
How on earth is an owner supposed to juggle all these varying regional schedules and biological protocols without feeling completely overwhelmed? I mean, you'd need a medical degree just to keep the calendar straight.
And that feeling of overwhelm is exactly why your relationship with your veterinarian is indispensable. You are not supposed to figure this out alone.
Good, because it sounds impossible.
It would be. You don't have to memorize the tick life cycle in your specific zip code or, track titer levels. Your vet does that. Your job is to partner with them, communicate your dog's specific lifestyle like, do they hike in the woods, do they go to doggy daycare, and then just follow the highly localized scientific schedule the vet builds for you.
So the vet holds the clinical shield,
Exactly.
but defending that baseline isn't just a clinical task left to the vet's syringe or their dental scaler. It is heavily reliant on the daily fortification provided by your routine at home.
Now we're moving from the clinic back to the living room. Preventive care extends deeply into daily habits, and the biggest, most impactful one we can control is weight management.
Maintaining a healthy weight really seems to be the ultimate preventative measure. It ties directly into joint health, energy levels, overall well-being. But I want to dig into the why here. Obviously, carrying an extra 10 pounds on a German Shepherd is a mechanical burden, right?
Right, it's extra gravity on the hips and elbows.
But is there more to it than just the physics of the weight?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
The mechanical wear and tear is severe, but the biochemical impact is arguably worse. Adipose tissue, which is just body fat, is not just inert dead weight sitting on the dog's frame. It is an active endocrine organ.
Wait, hold on. Fat acts like an organ.
Yes, it really does.
Yeah.
Adipose tissue continuously secretes inflammatory hormones called adipokines. So an overweight dog is existing in a constant low-grade state of systemic inflammation. Those inflammatory chemicals circulate through the blood and actively degrade joint cartilage from the inside out, while the physical weight crushes it from the top down.
That is awful.
It is a dual-front attack on their mobility.
That is terrifying, but incredibly important to understand. So how do we monitor this at home? I mean, we aren't all putting our dogs on industrial scales every morning.
Oh, definitely not.
The framework shares a very practical, tactile tool for this. It's about physically feeling for the ribs. You should be able to feel the ribs under a slight layer of fat, like feeling the bones on the back of your hand.
Right.
If it feels like the knuckles on a clenched fist, they're too thin. If it feels like the fleshy palm of your hand, they're carrying too much weight and secreting those inflammatory hormones.
It's a brilliant, simple, tactile metric. And obviously, keeping them at that ideal body condition is intrinsically tied to nutrition feeding, a diet balanced for their specific life stage, but it's equally tied to exercise.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The way this preventive framework frames exercise. I want to push back on the traditional view for a second.
Go for it.
I think most of us view walking the dog or playing fetch as a way to burn off energy so the dog doesn't, chew the baseboards. It's behavior management. But looking at the science, exercise is treated as actual, literal preventative medicine. Can you unpack the mechanism there? How does a simple game of fetch actively protect a joint?
It completely reframes how we look at a walk. Let's go back to the anatomy of a joint for a second. Cartilage is unique because it is largely avascular.
Meaning no blood vessels, like we talked about earlier?
Exactly. It doesn't have a direct blood supply pumping oxygen and nutrients into it like a bicep or a hamstring does.
So how does the cartilage stay alive and healthy?
Through mechanical action, cartilage behaves exactly like a dense, wet sponge inside the joint capsule, which is filled with synovial fluid.
Okay, a wet sponge.
When a dog runs or plays fetch, the physical compression of the joint literally squishes metabolic waste out of that cartilage sponge. And then, when the dog lifts its leg and the pressure releases, That sponge expands and sucks in fresh, nutrient-rich synovial fluid.
That is amazing. So if the dog is sedentary, the sponge just sits there.
Exactly. It just sits in its own waste. Without that mechanical pumping action of consistent daily exercise, the joint is essentially starving. It becomes brittle.
Wow.
So that game of fetch, you aren't just tiring the dog out. You are manually pumping nutrients into their cartilage. You are elevating their heart rate to maintain cardiovascular tone. You are burning off cortisol to protect the immune system from chronic stress. It is quite literally a daily multi-system dose of preventive medicine.
Okay, let's unpack this because this sets up a fascinating dynamic. You, the listener, are the one facilitating these daily routines.
Right, the owner.
You're doing the tactile rib checks, you're controlling the nutrition, you're providing the mechanical pumping action through exercise. And because of that, you are in the absolute best position to act as a highly calibrated sensor.
You are on the front lines.
Yeah.
You have an observational advantage that no veterinarian can ever match.
Right, because the vet sees the dog for maybe 45 minutes, twice a year. You see them every single day, which means you are the one who is going to notice the exact moment those daily habits or physical responses subtly shift off that baseline we established earlier.
And the best part is you don't need a veterinary degree to monitor this. You're checking the skin and coat condition during everyday grooming. Like, is it suddenly dry or flaky?
Right.
You're looking at ear appearance, any change in the pH balance that causes redness or odor, eye clarity. Are the paw pads cracked or irritated?
And it goes way beyond the physical to these minute behavioral subtleties, too. A subtle shift in how a dog pushes off their back legs to get up from the floor, a slight hesitation before jumping into the back of the SUV, an altered posture, or a micro change in their gait.
I'm really glad you mentioned gait, because a subtle shift in how they walk can cause a massive domino effect. If a dog's left hip is slightly sore, they will imperceptibly shift their weight to their right side.
To compensate.
Exactly. Over months, that causes compensatory muscle hypertrophy, which is overgrowth on the right side, and atrophy on the left. The whole biomechanical structure just warps.
And catching that early is the goal. But we should be clear here. The goal is absolutely not to diagnose at home. Your job isn't to figure out what the structural warp is. Your job is simply to build such a deep, objective familiarity with your dog's normal state that you can immediately flag when that warp begins.
Exactly. You are the early warning system.
But having all this observational data is completely useless if you can't organize it. Accurate medical records are essential. You know, I kind of view the observant pet owner in this scenario as the black box flight data recorder on an aircraft.
Oh, that's a great way to visualize the telemetry.
Think about it. The owner is constantly logging these continuous streams of telemetry data, the specific gait changes, the energy levels, the coat texture, the exact date they started hesitating on the stairs. They are storing all this contextual data.
Right.
So that when a crash happens, when an illness flares up, and they finally walk into the clinic, the vet, who is essentially the NTSB lead investigator, has the complete data set needed to interpret the situation. If you just walk in and say, he's acting weird, the investigator has zero telemetry to go on. But if you hand them the black box data, they can figure out exactly why the systems are failing.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that organized data collection is what empowers the whole veterinary partnership. It turns a guessing game into targeted diagnostics. And to help manage that data, there are tools out there. For instance, the VitalPet Companion app is mentioned in the Academy's framework as a really helpful organizational tool.
Right. It digitizes your black box, you track vaccines, appointments, and those daily wellness checks. But it's incredibly important to note that a tool like that operates entirely alongside the vet's clinical plan. It never, ever replaces the veterinarian. It's an administrative tool to organize your observations, not a diagnostic one.
Exactly. It just removes the mental friction of trying to remember when you last checked their weight or, when the tick booster is due. It frees up your cognitive load so you can just focus on observing and enjoying your dog's daily life.
Which really brings this entire deep dive to its thematic conclusion. Everything we've discussed today, from the clinical baselines and the fading memory cells to the endocrine impact of weight and the black box observation at home, it all funnels into one ultimate thread, a long-term synergistic partnership with a trusted veterinarian.
It really is the ultimate team effort. You bring the daily telemetry, the meticulous granular familiarity with your dog's unique quirks and baselines.
And the vet.
The vet brings the clinical expertise, the diagnostic tools to, as you said, look behind the drywall, and the medical context to actually interpret your observations.
Neither side can do it alone. The vet doesn't have the daily context, and you don't have the ability to run a blood panel. But together, you form this incredibly effective shield that ensures a long, healthy, and mechanically sound life for the dog. You are actively keeping the engine purring rather than waiting for the breakdown on the side of the highway.
And that proactive mindset makes all the difference. It shifts pet ownership from a place of constant anxiety and reaction to a
Sure.
place of profound empowerment and strategy.
It really does. But as we wrap up today, it leaves me with one final, kind of provocative thought to ponder.
Right.
We've just spent all this time exploring the incredible value of meticulous baseline tracking for our dogs. We're talking about monitoring the exact biomechanics of how they get up from the floor, cataloging their internal organ function over years, and being hypersensitive to a slight shift in their coat texture, all to catch the earliest whispers of decline.
It's a massive level of dedication, but it works.
It works beautifully. But it makes me wonder, if we are so willing to execute this complex clinical strategy for our dogs, why are we as humans so often incredibly reactive with our own health?
Wow. Yeah.
What if we applied this exact same framework of objective, curious, daily observation to our own bodies? What if we tracked our own internal baselines and mechanical shifts with the same unyielding dedication, instead of waiting to seek help until our own engine starts making a strange, terrifying noise?
That is a very, very good question.
Something to think about. Until next time, keep observing, keep tracking, and thank you for taking this deep dive with us.